Hey, this is James here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting November the 18th, 2019. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this week's video reading. This week I wanted to work with Lenormand, and the system choice was quite easy because I have literally been working with Lenormand all day today. My day started off where I had a conversation with one of my Cartomancy coaching students, and when we get together, when we talk, we work with Lenormand. And then after that, I was pleasantly surprised to receive notification that somebody had visited the site and ordered a Lenormand reading online. So I did the reading for that particular client. And so I figured at this point in the day, I might as well just go ahead and stick with Lenormand. So the deck that I'm going to be working with in particular is the Matilda Lenormand, and that is by Lynn Boyle. And as always, I will be leaving information about the deck in the description box below. So now that I've set things up, let's get to the table and take a look at what the Matilda Lenormand has to say about the week ahead. And here we are with the cards on the table, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the deck. And as I shuffle the cards, I'm focusing on my usual intention for these weekly general readings. And that is for the information, for the guidance, for the advice that's going to be most helpful and beneficial to come through the cards. To aid us in navigating through the experiences of the upcoming week. Only one more time will be good. All right. And now for this next part, I'm going to go ahead and do my usual thing, and that is to cut the deck. Now I'm going to fan the cards out. And now I'm going to be looking for 7 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. And so I have 7 cards. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up. I'm going to move that to one side for now, because this week we're going to be using more of the deck. So now I'm going to count back the 7 cards that I've selected to make sure I have 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I have 7 cards. All right, so now at this point, I'm going to lay them out in a line at the top of the space here. And each one of these cards is going to represent a day of the week. And because I read from Monday to Sunday, first card is going to represent Monday. And then each card is going to represent the following day after that. So now I'm just going to take a moment to look at the line, make sure it's somewhat straight. All right. And so you're probably wondering why I have the line at the top of the space with so much space still left over. And that's where the rest of the deck comes in. The rest of the deck is going to be used to modify or clarify each card here for each day of the week. Right? So this is going to represent, the cards on the table right now are going to represent the theme of the day or the core experience, that kind of thing. And then each card, I'm going to draw 2 cards underneath it to modify or give us more insight as to what's going on with this card. Right? So I'm going to go ahead now, before I start this, and shuffle the remainder of the deck. And I'm going to cut it one more time. And when we pull the clarifying or modifying cards, I'm just going to pull them right from the top of the deck. All right, so now taking a look at the first card, remember this is going to be Monday, so this is going to be something about the day itself. So here we have cross. So for some people starting off the week, there may be a burden or a difficulty that needs to be attended to, or that somebody's going to be dealing with something of a religious or spiritual nature, or that there's going to be some level of responsibility on Monday. Monday may be a day for some people where there is an ordeal that needs to be handled or dealt with. So again, cross for me can represent difficulty, it could represent burden, it could represent religion and spirituality. And so with that, it may be a matter of faith, and it could also represent responsibility. So now we're going to draw two more cards, and it's going to give us some more insight as to cross. So the first card, right from the top of the deck, is we have Rider. Okay, so Rider is a card that represents news or messages, right? So, or it could represent a visit or arrival. So this could be a difficulty arrives, a burden arrives. That's how my first impulse is to think. If we go with difficulty and burden, there's going to be an arrival. Or it could be some difficulty with an arrival. It could also be difficulty with some kind of news that's being delivered, because rider can represent news or messages. So again, we have the idea that here, again, of a burden or a difficulty arriving, or difficulty regarding some news or messages. So now let's draw one more card. And here we have tree. Okay, so here we have news or messages maybe pertaining to health. So here we have, if we mirror the cards with cross and tree, we have a health crisis or an ordeal regarding healing. So there may be something around that. And there may be some sort of news or messages pertaining to that. It could also be that somebody needs to hear news or message that it's critical or necessary to take care of themselves regarding their health. Right, so that's how I look at the card. So Monday starting off, for some people, there may be something having to do with health and healing that may be critical or necessary. And then there's some sort of news or message around that. Now it could also be for some people, if we go with the idea that this is about faith, religion, spirituality, then this could be about healing, and this would be maybe a spiritual healer and something having to do with that. But I'm going to go with the idea that this may have to do with health and healing. Okay, so now let's take a look at the next card representing Tuesday. And here we have the book. So core meaning of book for me can represent learning. So there's something about knowledge, learning, education. Tuesday can be about a project. Now for me personally, book has some significance for me right now because I know my schedule for next week, and I am going to be working with one of my cartomancy students, right? So for me, the book can represent reading cards, being a card reader, and then of course a student would be a person learning to read cards. So I have that personally, so that's relative to me, so I'll be interested to see what the following cards are, right? So again, book can represent knowledge, it can represent a project, it could represent learning, it could represent an actual book. Now, with the book being closed in the illustration, it could also be about a mystery or some kind of secret. Right, and for some people, if I pair the two cards, and here we have the burden or the difficulty with a project, or the difficulty with a learning experience. Okay, so now let's take a look at the two cards that are going to modify that. So the first card is whip. Okay, so if I go with the idea that book is about learning, then this could be about training or discipline, whip. If this is about knowledge, right, then this could be trying to sort out or work through some knowledge that's gained, or that knowledge or a secret leads to conflict, because whip in this regard can represent a conflict. It could represent strife. It could represent heated words being exchanged. It could represent an argument, right? So there's something about knowledge that leads to a conflict. Yeah, and then as a result of that, here we have confusion. So we have knowledge. If we mirror the cards, knowledge that we're uncertain about, or knowledge that's confusing. And then here we have, if we have whip and clouds, there may be a disagreement due to some kind of misunderstanding. And if we go with that, why is that? Because maybe we don't have all the knowledge with the book being closed. Or that the idea of keeping a secret leads to some kind of conflict, strife, argument, debate. So that's the energy of Tuesday. Oh, the other thing that I'm seeing here is that somebody may want to be learning about personal training, because this card can be about physical exercise and working out. But maybe they're not sure about that. They're not certain. That just jumped out at me in the moment. Okay, so now we're on to Wednesday. And here we have mountain. So mountain for me can represent a challenge, a block, or an obstacle. For the day, this may be a day of setbacks or delays. Even something being postponed. And for some people, this is a procrastination card for me. So there could just be somebody's procrastinating on something. So now let's look at the following two cards to give us more information about that. Okay, so here we have a setback or a delay with an opportunity. That's Clover. Clover for me can represent opportunity. Right, so there may be something along those lines. Let's draw the other card. Opportunity for, yeah, okay, so here we have a job opportunity. So there may be something of a challenge that day for somebody on the job. Somebody could be looking for work. There may be something about that. There may be a delay or a challenge or a setback. Because I would read the line straight down. Challenge with an opportunity regarding job and employment. Because here we have opportunity. Opportunity for what? Job or employment. So if you're working on Wednesday, pay attention to what could happen. Sometimes with the fox as well, there may be a mistake. Fox can represent something wrong, something bad, or some kind of mistake. So that's what I'm seeing with Wednesday. So now let's look at Thursday. Here we have anchor. Okay, just like fox is my job and employment card, anchor is also a work-related card. So here's the thing. So if we go with, this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday could be more of a routine. Anchor is one of my cards that can represent routine. It could also be a day for some people where there's hard work involved. That's, for me, it's a hard working card. So it could literally, in the literal sense, it could be somebody's working with their hands, because this is physical or manual labor. Or that in the metaphorical sense, somebody's going to have to roll up their sleeves and get a lot of work done. Now, if the day before can represent a challenge, a delay, setback, mountain, then here we have maybe holding out hope, because one of my meanings for the anchor card is hope. So now let's look at the next two cards to give us more insight into that. Okay, so here we have dog, and so dog could be a friend, a partner, or companion. So here we have maybe hard work with a friend, or that we're seeking some kind of security and stability. Those are anchor words too. In a friendship or a partnership. If this is about work, then this could be about help and support. That's another aspect of dog for me, help and support. It could also be about trust or advice even. So let's look at the next card. And here we have bear. Okay, so bear can represent power, strength. It could represent resources. Right, so here we have with dog and bear, this could be help or support with resources. Right, so I'm seeing that with bear. So now let's take a look at the next card, which would be Friday. And here we have paths. So this is known as crossroads or the ways. So that could be a day where we're faced with decisions. My keywords for that are choices, decisions, options, alternatives. That could be a literal day of being on the road, because that can represent an actual road. And here we have an intersection, or we're at a place and we're asking ourselves, which way do I go? Path is about choosing the best course. So what I'm immediately seeing is I'm looking at the image, and there's a connection here between this card, because one of the paths leads back to anchor, and then the other side of that path leads to this card over here. So it'll be very interesting. So maybe we'll take a look at those and connect them, right? So here we have maybe one path that has to do with work or some sort of stability. Like this is the stable path, right? This is the secure path. So maybe somebody's making a decision between what's secure and what's stable, and we'll have to see what's on that side. And I will note that here we have the inset of the Queen of Diamonds, so there may be something about a woman, and that reminds me, coming back to Tuesday, and Clouds has the King of Clubs on it, so there may be something this day regarding a man for some people, if we go with the idea of maybe a debate or an argument. It could be an argument with a man, or trying to sort something out or work something out with a man. But it comes on the heels of some kind of knowledge, right? And if I continue with this, then here we have the Jack of Clubs and the King of Clubs. So there may be something with an older man. Kings for me can represent men. And then the Jack of Clubs would represent, maybe a family member even, or a working situation, because a Jack of Clubs can represent an employee or a student. And that would go back to what I said for myself. But either an employer or a student, but it would be somebody younger than the king. But since they are the same suit, they can also represent family members. But if it's not, then they may be working. They may have a working relationship, or they may be colleagues, right? But there's going to be maybe some disagreement between somebody older, somebody younger. Okay, so now back to this. And the reason why I even jumped over here is because of the Queen of Diamonds. So now let's see what's going on. I'm going to draw another card. And here we have the Man card, okay? So I'm paying attention because the man can represent male seekers, and that would be me. If you're a woman, now remember Queen of Diamonds, if you're a woman, then the Man card would represent a man who's significant to the situation. And usually what I do is when I draw a significator card, I pay attention to the card that's above him, because that's what's on his mind, right? So on this particular day, there may be a decision that's weighing on our minds, right? Going with the visual. Right? And so for some men, like I was saying, this may be about choosing which path to go. This may have to do with work. And with that, it may be work that's, long-term, somewhat secure, somewhat stable, maybe even somewhat routine. That's a positive. On the challenging side, it may be a little bit more dull or boring or predictable. Right? And I'm also looking at he's facing dogs. So this could be about looking for help, looking for support, looking for advice regarding this decision. Right, and what I'm doing now is I'm knighting, so he knights to mountain. So this could be a delay, setback, block. If this is about a decision, maybe the decision has been put off for some time. And it may be now we're getting to the place where we have to really make the decision or the choice, right? All right, so now let's take a look at what's going on underneath him. And so here we have Tower. Yeah, so Tower can represent a company, a corporation, a firm. And it also knights to anchor. So this could be long-term work with a company, a corporation, a firm. And this is just jumping out at me, keeping with what I talked about in my Tower de Marseille reading last week. I'm seeing here we have someone who has elevated status. So this could be somebody who is working with the government, because for me this represents the government. And this could be local, state, federal. So this could be a man who is high up, a man who holds office. And if I knight, with that in mind, if I knight man to Fox, and this could be somebody who's an employee or somebody who has been, manipulating things or trying to take advantage, or somebody who's done something wrong. Remember, fox can be something bad, something wrong, some kind of mistake. You know, a scam, a con, a fraud. Those are all aspects of fox in the negative sense. Okay, so that is all Friday. So it's something by week's end. So going into the weekend, this person may be faced with a decision, right? Okay, now for me, if I keep it relative, because I mentioned that the man could represent me, so there may be a choice or a decision paths for the man, me, about my self-employment, because just like fox can be about self-employment, right? And the man knights to this, so this could be self-employment, but it could also be about my craft, my trade, my skill, right? And then with that in mind, then this could be freelance work or self-employment, right? And there's another possibility, this isn't for me, but for somebody else. If this is about work, then there may be something about a position of authority. There is the boss, manager, supervisor, leader. And this could be a political leader, political authority, and the man is on top of that. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens by week's end if this represents somebody in high office, somebody in politics, somebody in the government. Okay, so now let's take a look at Saturday, the card that represents Saturday. And here we have child. So Saturday is a day that can literally be about children, because child in a literal sense can represent a child. And if it's not about a child, then it would be about the beginning of something, starting something. And what I'm seeing here now, remember, I talked about this idea with paths being the way it's laid out or the way it's designed, being a connector card. So here we have on one side, we have, remember, maybe something with work. It's stable, it's secure, it's routine, maybe a little bit boring and dull, right? Somebody's been doing it for a long time because it represents long-term work. And then here on the other side, we have child. Child is something new, something fresh, you know, something just starting up, right? And so as I'm saying that, I notice that child knights to tower. And so here we have the idea that maybe a startup company, right? Remember, this can be a company, right? So somebody may be starting up a company, and so somebody's torn between something that's established and something that's new, because both cards knight to tower, right? And as I'm saying that, then maybe for something here that the person may be considering, you know, something with a friend. This could be work with a friend. So maybe with a startup, there may be a friend involved in that. Or this could be about loyalty to the long-term work, right? Because the dog in that case can represent man's best friend, and that's usually, you know, a nod to being loyal. And then here we have loyalty to a manager, boss, supervisor. So while the work may be dull, maybe even a little bit boring or routine, person's looking at this or considering this or keeping this in mind because there's loyalty to whoever's in charge. All right, so now let's take a look at the next card under child, and here we have mice. Okay, so if this is going with the idea that this may be a startup, you know, something new, something beginning, then here we have stress and worry with mice. It could also be that there's some sort of stress and worry involving a child, because this could be a child that we are stressed or worried about. Now this could also be something new, child, that somehow gets ruined or spoiled, because mice for me can represent things that are ruined, things that are spoiled. Right, so now let's draw the next card so we can get more insight. Yeah, and here we have snake. So here we have the card that for me that represents a complication or something complex. So here we have a little bit of a dichotomy. We have like polar opposites. With child, child usually represents something simple. So I would go with something easy, right? Something fun. And then snake is something complex, something complicated, something that's a long and winding process and very interesting. So we have mice in between. So there's stress and worry. So it could be something that starts off simple and easy, becomes complicated, And as it becomes more and more complicated, there's stress and worry. There's stress. I was supposed to say stress and worry. There's stress involved. Right? I'm thinking that there's some sort of gradual decline. Right? It gradually moves from, because mice can represent something that gradually is diminished or gradually lessens. So the fun aspect of it gradually declines and it becomes complicated. Right? It becomes entangled. Right? And then here we have the inset of the Queen of Clubs. So here we have something that may be involving a woman that day. It could even be like maybe there's fun involved or some sort of playful energy with child, and then a woman somehow ruins it because she's a nuisance or a pest. Because mice, for me, can represent something that's a nuisance, right? Like something that's bothersome. All right, and so let's take a look at the final card here for Sunday. And Sunday, ooh, they're very nice. So Sunday has the sun, and the sun is the best card in the deck. It represents happiness. It represents big luck. It represents success, confidence, positive outlook, illumination. In the literal sense, it could be a sunny day. Whereas Tuesday with clouds could be a cloudy day, right? All right, so let's see what more has to be said about sun. Oh, okay. So here we have a day at home, because the sun for me can literally represent a day or daytime. So here we have a day at home or a day with the family, because the house can represent home and family. So it may be a day, and that makes sense because it's the weekend. So most people are doing things with their families on weekends. So I see this as a family day, a day with the family, a day at home. You know, a day to be comfortable. House is all about comfort. And I would even say that somebody may even feel more positive and confident about being who they are. Because for me, house can represent like being yourself. You know, being comfortable in your own skin. So somebody may get some illumination about that, or they may be feeling more confident, more radiant. And for some people, there may even be a day with the head of a house, because the inset is the King of Hearts, and for me, he's the family man, the head of the family. You know, he's a husband and father, so there may be something having to do with that as well. All right, and so the final card, rounding out this week's reading, we have birds. Okay. So here we have the possibility of a day where the family has a conversation or a discussion, some kind of communication, because birds, for me, represents all those things. It represents conversation. It represents a dialogue. So there may be a family discussion that needs to be had on Sunday. It makes me feel like some families where they talk about there needs to be a family meeting on a particular day. They set a day and a time. That makes me feel like on Sunday somebody may be calling a family meeting. And so on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook here. I hope that you enjoyed seeing something different. I really felt jazzed about wanting to try something new, you know, just to keep things, keep things fresh, right? So this has been the Oracle Outlook. I am James Himm Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.